So recently, we've been inundated with, I guess, all sorts of memos coming out with the Trump and Russia stuff. The wild part about it is none of this is necessarily getting across any kind of implication between Trump and Russia, and yet everybody is screaming to high heaven that they got Trump. The wild part about this is that all of this started supposedly with some salacious relationship between Donald Trump and the Russian government in order to cheat Hillary Clinton in order to get Trump elected. We are nowhere near that particular reality. They're talking about business deals. Now, I would agree that Donald Trump might have done some kind of shady business dealings with Russia, but let's be very clear that that's not the same thing as Donald Trump working with Russia in order to collude to get the election. We have slipped and slid far past that. I thought all of this was a Trojan horse anyway. In the same way that Bill Clinton eventually gets caught for a blowjob, despite all of the stuff starting with Whitewater, I suspected that the same thing was going to happen with Donald Trump, where they were going to slide far and fast away from the original premise. Keep in mind, they hated Trump. The point of this was to get Trump. How they got him was irrelevant to the process. But everybody screams to high heaven every time something comes out that they got him for this particular time, as they've done 20 other times before. Do they? Who knows? I'm not necessarily looking forward to a President Mike Pence, but for whatever reason, you have some Democrats that are. One of the things, though, that came up was Maria Butina. Now, this was the woman that they said was a Russian spy. They've said everything, her having some kind of sexual relationships, all sorts of stuff that they've been bringing out. She's reached a plea deal. Now, one of my subscribers, Wicked Guru, asked me what I thought about this. Now, just so happened, Aaron Buzzsaw Matei, it would have been nice if Aaron Buzzsaw Matei was on the show to talk about this himself, but he doesn't necessarily want to come on the show, so fair enough. That said, he does a damn good job at eating people alive, so just because he didn't say he doesn't want to come on the show, that was just the impression that I got. But regardless of that, that has nothing to do with his ability to debone people when they trespass him in this case. Now, in this case, this was Democracy Now! He used to work for Democracy Now! And apparently Democracy Now! Is bringing on a woman that he called a propagandist, saying that he wished they would bring on more voices that are more skeptical of this Russian nonsense, and that it's sad to see that Democracy Now! Has been relegated to this, and that this is not the Democracy Now! That I know. Now, I'm going to go through this story relatively swiftly because I need to prepare, but I did want to talk about this one because I thought this one was interesting, and shout out to Wiki Guru for sending it to me. So it starts here. Let's start here. Maria Butina, accused Russian agent, reaches plea deal with prosecutors that includes cooperation. Now, the part that I want to get to is here. Butina was arrested in July and accused of ensnaring Erickson in a duplicitous relationship, using him for cover and connection as she developed an influence operation designed to advance the agenda of the Russian Federation. She pleaded not guilty to the charges of conspiracy and failure to register as a foreign agent. That is not the same thing as being a spy. And they're talking about her serving about 6 months, which again is not the same thing as her being a spy. The interesting part here is Aaron Matei gets into a back and forth with one of the with Darcy right here. So empty will. I'm going to post a few documents for the benefit of the fucking idiots who out there who like to weigh in on Russia without knowing what they're talking about. Remember Anna Chapman, most famous, Russia spy in the last decades? Here's her docket. Now, Aaron Matei responded to this. Thread ignores basic facts that empty will can't refute. Butina is not accused of being a spy. Butina is not accused of working with the Russian intelligence. She pleaded guilty as a foreign agent without prior notification to the Attorney General. Prosecutors withdraw the most serious claims. All of that's true. Beyond that, he continues. I want to get to the point where he first engages. I mean, because he's like going in on this. All right. So let's start here. Oh no. Let's start here. Maria Butina, alleged Russian agent, offered sex for a job. That was false. In fact, who is Maria Butina? Story of accused Russian spy who infiltrated NRA before the 2016 election. Case bolsters understanding of infiltration Russian 2016 attack. Accused Russian spy offered sex for power. His point is none of this was true. None of this was true. The fact that Maria Butina was widely, and I stress widely, falsely portrayed as a spy, subjected to misogyny, and caged in solitary confinement without outcry underscores the Russophobia, neo-McCarthyism that propels Russiagate. A lot of people who should be ashamed. They put this woman in solitary confinement. They got her just on a conspiracy charge. She's going to serve for 6 months. Let's see. From what I can gather so far, the prosecution of Maria Butina is a joke, and any media outlet that parrots it is uncritically is going to be embarrassed. The only reason it's taken seriously is because she's Russian, and it's fashionable to demonize Russians right now. Agreed. Right here. Prosecutors acknowledge that their claim that she offered sex for access is false, based on them misunderstanding her joke. I think more embarrassing errors in this case will emerge for prosecutors and the media outlets that credulously promoted them. And at this point, he's bringing up the Washington Post. Where is... All right, let's start here. All right, and this is right here. Here we are. I think it's fine that my ex-colleagues Democracy Now! Feature conspiracy theorists as their go-to for Russiagate guests, but it's too bad that they failed to challenge the conspiracy theory and exclude voices who do. MSNBC lied. It's not the Democracy Now! I remember. And he's given his point. Now, the person he's talking about as a conspiracy theory is Marcy Wheeler. We're going to see parallel kinds of charges, and I'll just read it. Just as an example of one of the things that Paul Manafort lied about is he was getting payments through a super PAC from Tom Barack, who is one of Trump's biggest donors and who is the guy that hired Manafort in the first place. So he was getting payments through a super PAC that themselves are probably not legal. And it raises questions. The questions we've always asked about Paul Manafort is he was dead broke for the entire time he was working for Trump, who was paying him. And if he was being paid through a super PAC, for example, then it's another example, as I said before, the conspiracy to defraud the United States. And what I expect is what we see in New York. We're going to see parallel kinds of charges, but tried to hiding the role of Russians in Mueller investigations. And I think those will add up. She has all sorts of ideas. Here's another one. And I think it makes a lot clearer what quid pro quo. Right, let's start in the beginning. And so it really changes his willingness. Most of the witnesses in the meeting say that at the end of the meeting, he said, sure, we'll get rid of, we'll revisit the Magnitsky sanctions when and if my dad wins. Changes the entire meaning of that meeting. And I think it makes a lot clearer of what quid pro quo that was involved. This is her making her point, her case. Now, she didn't like this. Him calling her a propagandist or conspiracy theorist. He goes further to make his point. She attacks. Aaron still beclowns himself because he doesn't realize Manafort had already pled to conspiracy. He responds, Marcia is deflecting Knowing that conspiracy, Manafort pled to concerns lobbying tax charges over the Ukraine, which Mueller, judges acknowledges, have zero to do with Trump-Russia conspiracy at issue. And again, he makes his case. The government does not intend to present at trial evidence or argument concerning collusion with the Russian government. Judge Barr's mention of Mueller's collusion probe from ex-Trump campaign chief Manafort's second trial. Why would I engage in this? It's not even intelligent, bad faith hoaxery. What's bad faith about it? You're being deboned. Right here. And he continues. What I just said was her new plea deal has nothing to do with espionage because she's not a spy. That's correct. She's not a spy, and the plea deal doesn't allege that. That's why she could be released within months. You're an expert, Marcy. Is that how we treat spies? Maria Butina has been kept in solitary for months and widely dubbed as a Russian spy. Her new plea deal has nothing to do with espionage because she's not a spy. All right, he continues. By the way, as the New York Times notes, prosecutors are now backing off of claims made. And this continues. Maria Butina is the Russian woman accused of running a secret campaign to influence powerful American conservatives, has agreed to a plea deal. Has plead guilty to conspiracy to act as a foreign agent, bringing to a close a case that is drawing headlines with prosecutors taking a sly seductress, oh God, who traded sex to further her aims of her spy masters in Moscow. Yeah, that's somewhat misogynistic. But in court papers laying out the plea deal, the portrayal of Ms. Butina is far tamer than the narrative that the government has put forward after her arrest in July. The latest filings make no mention of the most salacious accusations against Butina, that she used sex as spycraft, and she instead comes across as a tool of powerful men who helped her infiltrate the National Rifle Association and the Republican Party. Here's another one. The deal, which now must be approved by the judge, stipulates that Mrs. Butina must cooperate with federal, state, local authorities in exchange for what could be a short prison term or possibly release after having already spent 5 months in jail. He's making the point that she doesn't know what she's talking about. He continues. P.S. Marcy, after your claim that Manafort plea deal was checkmate and Mueller sewed up the key witness to implicate President and that Flynn was central to the Trump-Russia payoff, hey, what happened to that one? I'd hold off on the embarrassing insults. If you see him walking down the street, man, walk on by. I don't know all the facts yet, so I can safely, I think this was before. Look, he's making the point, and not just him making the point. The papers themselves, be it the New York Times, the Washington Post, are making the point that they called this woman a seductress, and come to find out, not so much. They're getting her on conspiracy that she's going to be a few months, and then she's essentially being deported back to Russia. This is not the way that we treat spies. That's the point. And if this woman was a spy, she wouldn't be serving a few months. She'd be serving a much longer prison sentence. This case, this is more to do with her being a Russian. Let's just be honest. This is more to do with her being a Russian and them looking to punish any Russian that they can get their hands on for Mueller to justify his existence. In this case, she's been kept in solitary confinement and mistreated for what's going to end up being somewhat of a slap on the wrist as a conspiracy charge. So, like I said, I would have loved Matei to give his own breakdown of this, but that's what it boils down to. Just so we're clear, the government has alleged that the United States Person 1 worked with Butina to arrange inductions to U.S. persons having influence in American politics, including high-ranking members of the National Rifle Association and organizers of the National Prayer Breakfast, that would ultimately give her a surprising level of access to conservative politicians, including, in one memorable interaction on video, to then candidate Trump. Most notable, Butina, Russian gun rights, right to bear arms, hosted a delegation of former NRA president, board members, and major donors to Moscow in 2015, where she appears to have succeeded in arranging a meeting between NRA insiders and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, raising the prospect of a discussion between conservative political operatives and a powerful member of the Russian President Putin's inner circle in the midst of a presidential campaign. The fact of the matter is, though, there is no connection here between Trump and Russia. There is no connection between Trump and Russia. And the person who they've called everything but a child of God is essentially getting a slap on the wrist for failing to register as a foreign agent. Wicked Guru, that's what I think about this story. I don't think there's a there there. They found a Russian and they punished a Russian. Before I finish this one, I want to give a shout out to a few people that I missed in the last video. And if I can find that. Come on. Screen's taking forever. Here we are. How many times has Progressive Voice called Rubin? Oh, I see. Brian Finley. How many times has PV talked about Rubin running away from debates? I don't know. I don't watch his show. It's like I would rather take a nail and bang my head. I would bang the nail in the table. I suppose I'll watch that fucking show. But I guess your point is he's saying that Rubin is running away from debates, and he himself is running from debates. Well, we should say hiding. Anthony Reyes, somebody should G-check this punk. G-check, I don't know. Oh, gut check. I haven't heard gut check in a long time. I haven't heard they use it in a long time. I think you're showing our age. All right, I'm going to end this. I got to be honest, I'm slight dragging ass. Laura Steiner is going to be here at 3 p.m. Eastern, and Kyle will be here at 6 p.m. Eastern. And I need to get a time for a patron appreciation show. I want to have that today. I may try to have it before Cal, but if I do have it before Cal, it's only going to be like 30 minutes. But nevertheless, I'm going to end this here. Aaron Matei goes after a propagandist that apparently is put on Democracy Now! About Butina. Butina, even though they've put her in solitary confinement, even though they've grossly mistreated her, it ends up, for the most part, just, you could say, being some kind of conspiracy charge that has nothing to do with the original inciting incident of Trump and Russia. It looks like they're looking for any Russian to justify the existence of the Mueller probe. That said, I will end this here. I don't know if anybody is here. Let's see. We already have a progressive deuce, Peter. Who's Peter? Then why the indictments on Trump? What indictments on Trump? There's an indictment on Trump? I wasn't aware there was an indictment on Trump. Elephants on coke. And they can't admit their precious cleanse are capricious, corrupt monsters. He said we punch up. I'm not punching down. Progressive Voice has more views than me. I mean, he has more subscribers than I do. This is technically me punching up. We already have a progressive douche, Peter. I don't know who is Peter. What Peter? I don't see Peter on here. We have 65 subscribers. Redneck Economics. What happened in Redneck Economics? Here's a conspiracy theory for you. Russians are so badass that they ride to work. They train them. Will still be young kids who have to go to the forest and beat up a bear for honor. What? Rest in peace, mine. What do you mean, Beltesar? I know you're not punching Jay on JT. It was in relation to PV. Oh, I see. Yeah, he's been hitting, he hit Winkle. I mean, he has a ton more of subscribers than Winkle. He had Jordan. He had all sorts of people. It's so fucking bizarre. Oh, I missed your donation. Let me catch you. I got you. I haven't missed it yet. The show's not over. Come on. The new 2.5 Men. Sam Sheepherder, Cal, and PV are the new 2.5 Men. Sam, Cal, Cenk, and others who claim to be master debaters can debate those to their right easily, but lose just as easily to their left. Like I said, I will... Now, Cenk, every debate I've seen Cenk in, he's lost. Just saying. I don't think he necessarily lost to Ben Shapiro. It was just a stylistic thing. It was just kind of weird. Cenk was low energy. And Ben Shapiro was putting in 1,000 words in every breath. I'm trying to think back to his debates. He got eaten alive by Cal. Cal ate him for lunch. Sam eats libertarians alive. Eats them alive. If you are a libertarian, I would not even get into the same room as Sam Sheepherder. As for Cal is actually pretty decent at debating. I've seen him debate right-wingers. He's done pretty good. I don't know who he's debated to his left. The conversation that he had with Jimmy Dore, that wasn't really a debate per se. But I feel you. Progressive douche equals Peter douche. Oh, I see. Peter douche. Gish Gallopin. What is that? Gish Gallopin. Creative experiments. Oh my God, the Cenk interviewed Green Party candidate Ohio. Cenk was looking after her like, why do you even exist? Yes. Constance. You're talking about Constance. I had her on the show. She's awesome. I like her. Sam Harris beat Cenk in the debate. Brian Finley. No, Cenk didn't lose that debate. I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. I didn't think he lost that debate. Hey, Jamarl, can you present your no argument and ask why Cal isn't more vocal about the no stance? Yes. I suspect that's probably going to be the part that we disagree on. That's probably going to be our disagreement, so that should be interesting. Have you ever interviewed Mike Maloney? I have not interviewed Mike Maloney. I don't even know who Mike Maloney is. Gish Gallopin is Ben Shapiro's only debate tactic. Oh, I see. Where you shift topics rapidly to overwhelm your opponent. Yeah, he just talks fast. He wasn't saying anything of worth or merit. It was just talking fast. I meant to say Ben Shapiro knockout. Wow, I see. Okay, fair enough. Cenk lost to CNN. Cenk didn't lose to CNN. In fact, he ate CNN alive. When Cenk went to that, it was a meeting. It was a media meeting, and he kind of made the point to them that you guys are failing miserably, and when people are on the left, you guys kind of give them shit and a stick. I thought he did pretty good on that. Yeah, I thought he did pretty good. Oh God, that's because Kyle is Tom Hartman's Padawan. I thought we've been over this. Oh man, I think he's to the left of Tom Hartman. Tom Hartman he whips himself into Democratic talking points. Cenk lost reality. It was the editor of Bloomberg. Oh, I see. He lost the global warming. He lost over the global warming debate. To who? Who's the global warming to debate to? Tom is worse than Kyle. That's not saying much, though. Tom is a creature of the Democratic Party. And as smart and as brilliant as Tom Hartman is when he's getting into history and talking about Thomas Jefferson and all this other stuff, when he gets into talking about Democratic Party politics, he wraps himself in the knots. Tom is part of the comfortable left. Unfortunately, he is. However, if you had a different country or a different world or different political space, Tom would be decidedly to the left. He just so happens to believe the Democratic Party is the only thing running, and so that's the only thing that he's on. And he fights like hell to protect that party. He wraps himself in the knots. He really does. A bunch of Cal haters in this chat. Yes, they are. Cal is one of the best political YouTubers by far. I think so too. Yes, I do too. I think the same. He may be more a creature of the party than I am, but I like him. Democrats are not salvageable. We'll see, and that's going to be the conversation that we have. I think that's going to be the conversation. Because, my stance is, if they're not to the left, you let them fail. And I'm curious on whether or not Cal is that where he is. What argument do you think he's on the wrong side of? Slow news day. I'm curious. Michael Easterwood. How is it possible that Democrats in the media can pick one narrative and push that is arguably more dangerous than Trump? You mean the Trump-Russia narrative, this idea of pivoting us closer to a nuclear conflict? I suspect they picked the argument that would give them a few bang for their buck. It would delegitimize Trump, but it would also give a pivot in order to attack elements of the left. If you remember, they started saying Black Lives Matter, environmentalist movement, anti-war movement, all this stuff were supposedly proponents of Russia. That's utter nonsense. They're even gone to the point of saying that protests in France were somehow instigated by Russia. Again, this stuff is nonsense. They're trying to get more bang for their buck, and Russia, going back to Cold War stuff, gives them bang for their buck. That's what I think. Tom had a show with a roll of toilet paper with DT's face on it, and a caller called him out for it, and he took it down. He was even giving the toilet paper away. That's funny. He'll continue with bad positions far too long instead of being honest. You're talking about Tom Hartman. Everything I don't like is Russia's fault. Pretty much. We can't pin our hopes on a single person. Policy is what we must get behind. That's true. Policy is what we must get behind, but that policy has to have somebody who can take it and articulate it. You're talking about Cal. And articulate it in a way that works. Cal says it's going to be harder to create a party, which I think is nonsense. If all those new groups had created a new party with someone like Bernie, that would have been more successful, in my honest opinion. See, I don't know if that's true. And this is why. This is what I mean by this. Personally, I think you should try to create a new party. I like Nick Brana's effort, and I like what Brana's doing. I support him 1,000%. But I have no illusions about the difficulty of doing it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't try. I think they're looking at it as ballot access and all this other stuff is difficult to do. I think Brana is looking at it as that party is utterly corrupted, and if you had somebody like a Sanders being a figurehead of a party, they could have drained support away from the Democratic Party. I know Cal has made this argument that there's no evidence there was collusion, but there is not evidence there wasn't. The sacred mad cow said doesn't have to be true to blackmail. Let me say that one more time. Burn a guillotine. There's no evidence there was collusion, yes, but there is not evidence there wasn't. The sacred mad cow said doesn't have to be true to blackmail. Oh, I see what you mean. That you can blackmail them even if it's not true. I guess so, but that's getting into some weird places. I mean, that's getting into some really bizarre places. Even if you could try to at least do something on the business end of things for private somehow. What? Even if you could at least try to do something on the business end, make them part of debates. Oh, I see. We the people must force legitimate second and third, fourth parties. Yes. Make them part of the debates. Yes. And give them ballot access. Yeah. But, the parties themselves, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party have a vested interest in preventing third parties and fourth parties from getting into the mix. We, as the public, have a vested interest in getting third and fourth parties into the mix because it holds the other parties accountable. I support what Brana is doing. it's one thing to have a party that is full-throated in your interests as opposed to having one that's, has to be forced and cajoled into taking a position that's half-ass. But I'm stuck with a certain reality. So one of the realities that I'm stuck with is William Wallace. William Wallace was one of the most popular politicians in this country. He should have been vice president, but he was essentially shafted by Truman. Wallace ran as a third-party candidate, and despite being the most popular politician at the time, got 10% of the vote. It's like, for fuck's sake. So my fear was that Sanders ran as a third party and got a small share of the vote, and in doing so was enough for Hillary to lose. But Hillary would have lost anyway. But they would have turned around and said Sanders was the responsibility for her losing, not necessarily her losing on her own merits. Now, that assumes that she would have came in second, as opposed to Sanders coming in second or Sanders winning outright. It's risky. If Sanders wins outright, it utterly destroys the Democratic Party. If Sanders doesn't win, this is one of those things where you're Russiagate is pure war propaganda. Yes, it is. And it's dangerous war propaganda. It's dangerous. No, I mean William Wallace. William Wallace was running under FDR. No, it was William Wallace, if I'm not mistaken. George Wallace was... Henry Wallace. We're both wrong. It's Henry Wallace. Sanders is just Howard Dean 2.0. He is not. No, it's not William Wallace. It's Henry Wallace. It's Henry. Cedar has Marcy Wheeler on all the time. I'm not surprised. That doesn't surprise me in the least. All right, I'm going to end this. It's 6 o'clock here. I've been sitting here since 9 o'clock doing the news. This is going to be a very late night. Cal will be on at 6 p.m. I'm sorry. 6 p.m. Eastern. And Laura Steiner will be on at 3 p.m. Bernie or guillotine. If Bernie had run in the current duopoly, he would have received 10% because the same dead tactics would have been used as always. Ranked choice vote. Bernie would have won the election by record margin. I kind of agree with you on this. Jamarl, then you have all new excitement to support. You wouldn't have fight. I agree with you with the ranked choice voting. I'm not certain Sanders would have lost. By the same token, I'm not certain that he would have won. This is an open question to me. I don't necessarily know. I think people have a hard time getting over voting between the two parties in a duopoly, only because they were born and raised and everything that they know is those two parties. If Sanders was able to get on a debate stage, he would have had a much better chance of winning. If they could keep him off the debate stage, it kind of depends on how the election would have panned out. They would have called him a spoiler. They would have called him all sorts of stuff. You'd have had Democrats who were Hill supporters who would have never voted for him. By the same token, Sanders supporters would have drained from the party. The question is, what would the independents have done? You'd have had some Trump supporters that would have voted for him, maybe, and you would have had independents that would have went for him. Whether that would have been enough to win is an open question. I don't know. Fact of the matter is, though, he would have had to win, or he would have been destroyed after the fact. Meaning, the space that's been created now for Medicare for all, college, and all this other stuff, that narrative, for the most part, is done by Sanders, or from what Sanders started. If Sanders would have lost, I suspect strongly that would have been squashed. I suspect strongly that would have been squashed. It was risky. It was risky. Xander, Jamarl Thomas, then you would have all new excitement and support. You wouldn't have to fight the Democratic Party or the baggage of the party. You would have been able to middle roll and voters come. No, that I agree with you. Don't misunderstand me. I supported Jill Stein. And if there was a third party that was running, I voted for the Libertarian candidate in the last election that I voted in Virginia, in Richmond. I support third parties. I think third party politics are vitally important. It's not necessarily always an issue of winning. It's also showing dissatisfaction with the two major parties and pulling support away from the major parties. So don't misunderstand me. The issue here that we're talking about, if we're talking about a specific thing of whether it's easier to start a new party or whether it's easier to take over the Democratic Party, the machinery that's in place in the Democratic Party is there as opposed to the machinery needing to be created. Part of the reason that Nick Bronner wanted to draft Sanders was because Sanders could have been a figurehead that would have pulled people over, meaning he would have been able to extricate several members of the current Democratic Party establishment in order to cannibalize it into a new party. Without that figurehead, that becomes difficult to do. Jill Stein had a fundamentally same, platform as Sanders, maybe a little further to the left. She got no traction. Her name wasn't Bernie Sanders. I hope that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. So it's not that I disagree with you. It's a little bit more nuanced. It's not as easy as that. Third parties are important. Third parties should be supported. There needs to be some way to break the duopoly itself. I want a yellow vest. I want a yellow vest too. All right. I want a yellow vest also. All right. Let me end this. I will see you guys back here. I voted Jill Stein in the swing state. So did I. Balthazar. Was proud to do it. You cheated my guy. You're not getting my vote after you cheated my guy. We aren't getting anything by taking over the party. See, that's it. I mean, this is where my perspective on this is more nuanced. If my name is Nick Bronner, I need to create an argument in order to pull people out of the Democratic Party, which means that he takes on the perspective of a political party. So it would be no different than Tories or Labour or Scottish National Party or Liberal Democrat, whatever. They make their arguments from the perspective that gets them from point A to point B. The argument that Bronner needs to make is that the Democratic Party can't salvage it. There needs to be something fundamentally new, and we need to build a coalition and go from there. Bronner is right, by the way. If you want to hold the Democratic Party accountable, leave the Democratic Party. It sounds like an oxymoron, but it's absolutely true. The fact that you're draining your support shows a certain amount of dissatisfaction, and if they can't get elected by the path that they're taking, well, either they need a new path or they're going to be destroyed. There's a consequence to that, though. There's no magical door. That consequence is that you embolden fucking maniacs. But keep in mind, part of the reason that these guys are maniacs is because the party has slid so far to the right, because the Democratic Party has also slid far to the right. Some of this has to do with Reagan and the Clinton taking his model after Reagan and everything else. We're in a new day, though. This is not those politics. We've seen a disintegration in the center. And this chaos that's been taking place in this country, the Trump, the Brexit, and all this other stuff, is a disintegration of central politics. It's failed to meet the needs of the public itself, and the public has demanded something else, and it's looking on the wings for some change. Let's see, what is this? Do you trust Sanders after he sold out in 2016? Keep in mind, we could be having radically different conversation if he had left the Democratic Party. What do you mean by trust? It depends on what you mean by trust. I trust him as a politician. That's all. No more, no less. I think he bends to political whims. I think he has a certain ideology about him. I do trust that. I trust, this I trust the ideology, but trust is the word doesn't apply. It's political, if that makes sense. I think Sanders, I think he believes what he says from the standpoint of his ideology. I think he's earnest from the standpoint of him being a democratic socialist. I don't know what you mean by trust, and so it's hard to answer that question. Do I trust that he wants Medicare for all? Yes. Do I think he wants expand Social Security benefits? Yes. I think he's a true believer. Do I think he wants to pay for education or get education? Yes. I think those things, yes, full on. Do I think he thinks the military campaigns in many of these countries are illegal? Yes. Now, do I think he wants to legalize pot? Yes. Like there's a host of issues that I believe he believes in. But I don't know what you mean by trust, and because I don't know what you mean by trust, it's hard to answer that question. If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. Jack Bat Country, can you cover the Yellow Vest protests and how it's spreading all through the EU and maybe Canada? I've covered several. I have like 6 videos on the Yellow Vest protests. I've even had one that went on today with Macron, essentially folding and giving up some items, increasing the wage and lowering taxes. He's refusing to raise taxes on the rich. But he's given in to several of the demands. Now, the Yellow Vest movement has looked at him giving in to demands and said, there's more than Macron can give. The thing is, it's not necessarily an individual, and there's not necessarily a figurehead, so it's hard to, how do you negotiate when you're essentially fighting air and smoke? He's just trying to tamp down righteous indignation and anger. But the problem is, it's kind of like a juggernaut. When it started moving, it's hard to quell that. And at this point, it's moving. It's organized into something. He should have never put that gas tax up in the first place. Lowering taxes on the rich, but raising it on everybody else. It's fucking insane. Absolutely insane. But yeah, I have several videos on the Yellow Vest protests. The Golden Rule. I think Bernie would have won a 3-way in 2016. Statistically speaking, Trump and Clinton were in the mid-20s, and with 75% turnout, Bernie could have gotten comparative percentages. I hope he abandons them once they screw him in 2020. If they screw Sanders in 2020, oh man. If he runs and they screw him in 2020, all hell would break loose. I have to be honest, there are certain scenarios that I think will create severe problems in this country. The first one is if they screw Sanders. Immediately, the lefties would flip. They would flip the fuck out. So that's the first point. Meaning, if they screw Sanders in this race, they guarantee a loss to Trump. Trump wins in 2020 if Sanders is screwed. There's no way. Meaning, they're not going to allow that twice. Meaning lefties. There were a lot of lefties who pulled themselves out of the political space after they screwed Sanders. But there were a lot that decided to vote for Clinton even after that. There was a higher percentage of people that voted for Clinton, meaning the Sanders supporters, than Clinton supporters voted for Obama. Did you know that? That's fucking fascinating. Now, the second part. If they impeach Trump and try to remove Trump from that office, they will be hell to pay. Mark my words, if they try to impeach Trump and take him out that office, there will be hell to pay. And by the way, they will be right. George Bush invaded a fucking country. No consequence. No consequence. But Trump, that's the one who needs to be impeached for something. For some fictitious crime. And by the way, if Donald Trump has some business dealings with Russia that ended up being illegal, I gotta be honest, I don't particularly care. My concern goes to this narrative of Trump and Russia from the standpoint of collusion, because I think it's dangerous. If you're talking about a business relationship, I don't care. It is very possible that there was a business relationship between Trump and Russia during the election. That is infinitely possible. He's a businessman. Okay. If you're saying he's breaking the emollients clause, fair enough. I just don't like the Trump and Russia collusion narrative, because the Trump and Russia collusion narrative is a Trojan horse that's being used to attack the left and to delegitimize the presidency. The reality of it is, Trump wasn't lifted over the finish line for Vladimir Putin. Trump was lifted over the finish line by Hillary Clinton not going to Wisconsin, and by the Republican parties essentially shaving off votes with voter suppression in these various states. Just call it what it is. Call it what it is. Tom Hartman said Trump and Pence both should be impeached. That's what I mean. Tom Hartman is huffing glue. I saw that clip. One of my subscribers sent me a clip showing Tom Hartman talking about Trump and Pence need to be impeached. How the fuck did Pence get into this? Like, in order for him to process this, he understands that if Trump is impeached, Pence is going to be president. Tom Hartman is probably just as terrified of Pence, if not more so, than Trump. In which case, he needs to impeach both. So he ends up with impeaching both. It's insane. It's utterly detached from reality itself. Yes, he's sniffing glue. That's what I said. As smart as Tom Hartman is, he ultimately is a creature of the party. They'll screw Sanders if Hillary decides to run again. Maybe even Beto. The media outlets are pushing him hard. He's essentially the white Obama. Oh, dude, everybody's here. Let's make this a patron. Oh, I should say let's make the after show a patron appreciation, but that's not fair. Master Beto is going to run. It looks like Beto is gearing up for a presidential run. Everybody is pushing him. They saw the amount of money that he raised in Texas, and they got wet when they saw that. Oh, God, look how great he can be bribed. He's like the white Obama. The white Obama. Beto doesn't get my vote if he runs, by the way. Sanders or bust. Or Tulsi. I think I would vote for Tulsi. I need to look more at her domestic record. But love her war policy. Love it. Beto is a great alternative to Billary. You have a lot of neo-libs that are pushing Beto hard and are angry that people are bringing up the failures of his record, such as some of those oil votes. Mainstream media is calling Beto progressive. I know, that's my point. That is my point. If you're asking me, do I vote for Sanders if he runs? Yes, Sanders has my vote. He has my full support. If you ask me if I trust him, I trust Sanders on democratic socialist stuff. Where I lose the thread is on catering or folding to certain political pressures. That's where the trust thing comes in, not necessarily where his heart is. I think his heart is in the right place. I know some of you completely disagree with that, but I think the platform that he's pushed hasn't necessarily changed. The political winds have had him bending from here to there, but for the most part, he's tried to stay with the same thing. President Pelosi, oh God, you saw the video too. President Pelosi, because Trump didn't have enough plastic surgery in the White House. Oh, that's wrong. That's so wrong. Trudy, the establishment is still marginalizing Bernie. He's seen as a threat because of what he would do, Bernie 2020. They're trying to, but there's a lot of people who are also pushing Sanders. And the left is not as cowed as it was in 2016. They're not as cowed. There has been a group of media, Blumenthal, David Sirota, you can say Jordan, I guess I'm a talking head, so I guess me, Door. There's a lot of people who's aggregated around each other, even though we aren't necessarily connected with each other. I would even add Aaron Matei into this, but it's a group of us, and we seem to be pretty loud, and seem to be pointing out stuff that they don't necessarily like the fact that we're pointing out. This is drawing blood from the likes of Nier Tandon, who's responding to this, meaning that this is still within. She wouldn't respond to it if it wasn't necessarily in her circle, meaning we've screamed loud enough that people have started to hear. So, I don't know. 2020 is going to be a fucking war, and I would say that has already started with the dialogue that has been taking place from the standpoint of media, especially around Beto and Sanders, especially around those two. Beto is doing his best to be bribed. And they hated the fact that we brought that up. Joey Diker. What's happening, Joey Diker? John Ross. Russiagate is about maintaining a pre-existing worldview, not about Russia. People get desperate when the world suddenly changes, ask conservatives. I agree with you that it's not fully about Russia. I disagree with you that it's purely about conservatives. I think it was a parting shot. It was a way to bleed Trump, where it can be a war of attrition over the time period of the 4 years. You must understand, these people are amoral. They do things purely for political purposes. The left is somewhat of a pain in the ass because the left looks at these things through the lens of right and wrong and morality and that type of stuff. But Clinton doesn't look at the world in those terms. Obama, I don't think he looks at the world purely in those terms. Trump, none of these guys. There is no way where you green light a war when you think of the world in terms of right and wrong. When you're saying, yes, go ahead, I'm going to green light the war in Yemen because I need to get a deal with Iran. Why is Saudi Arabia governing your foreign policy to the degree where you're giving them the okay to go murder a bunch of people in Yemen just because you want to get a deal with Iran? It's like, are you fucking kidding me? That's insane. I'm hearing a lot about the UN Immigration Compact and the Yellow Vest protests. Are you now? I need to check that out. I did hear something about Macron said something about immigration. At least I think I did. Because Saudi set the global oil price. Yeah, but the United States has a relationship with Saudi Arabia. Let me say it this way. If our foreign policy is that associated with that theocratic, batshit crazy, mob boss-like regime, then we need to do something about our foreign policy. We've been intrinsically connected with them from president to president to president going back into the 50s. That needs to change. Part of the Green New Deal is to extricate ourselves from that country and that government. We should have been doing this years ago. But God of oil Obama, who's been out there bragging that he's expanding oil in the midst of a climate crisis where they've said we have 12 years left. I mean, this is fucking amazing. Like some of the stuff that is fucking amazing. Fucking amazing. Goes to Walmart, buys vests, and protests outside. That's funny. Mainstream media is spinning hard trying to filter the message from the French Revolution. Yes. Even Dore has missed that point. What do you mean? Mainstream media is spinning hard trying to filter the message from the French Yellow Vests. Even Dore has missed that point and missed the point. See, I haven't seen Dore's show. I don't get the chance to watch shows like talking about. Maybe I need to start watching more. Barbara Mercer, enlighten us, Rob. What is it all about? 2020 would be a war the way the media is propping it up. I just think, especially from the standpoint of the web and internet, there's going to be a lot of flack that is going to be flying on all of these candidates, particularly Sanders, because Sanders is considered a front runner. There's going to be defenders and there's going to be attackers. And I'm probably going to be a horrible person for political expedience in the defense of Sanders. So forgive me now. Forgive me for what is going to take place. I can see it coming. Keeping a yellow vest holding up a Starbucks holiday cup. The protesters don't want to give up their borders. Oh, I see. Well, that's just one of the things, though, Bob. Because keep in mind, the protests aren't just left-wing. They're left-wing and right-wing. I mean, you have the political spectrum. So it's going to be both. Like, there's some people who say Macron needs to raise taxes on the rich. Like you said, there's some people who are talking about their borders. There's some people who want to extricate themselves from the European Union. It's running the gambit. All of them agree that they want higher wages. All of them, to some degree, agree that they want lower taxes. All of them agree that the way the system is organized right now is fucked up. But within that, you have varying degrees of, motley crew of items. Jamarl, I guarantee you the DNC controls Bernie Sanders again. He'll compromise, be low energy, and blame the Russians in debates. Oh, dude, I hope not. I hope not. I just posted a translated copy of the Yellow Vest Demands platforms on your Progressive Soapbox Twitter page. Thank you. I'll check that out. Yeah, slow news. I'll check that out. I'll check it out. All right. It's 12:30-ish. He definitely will blame the Russians. I'm sorry. He definitely will blame Trump, no doubt. So he believes Trump is the world's greatest threat. Trudy, I think he did think that. Or at the very least, I think he thought Trump was a bigger threat than Clinton was. I chafe at that because I'd argue that the policies that brought us Trump came from the failures of the left. And the idea of putting another status quo candidate in when the public clearly doesn't want her is problematic at best. I mean, they threw themselves to reality shows in order to prevent themselves from electing Hillary Clinton. Let's be honest. Michael Easterwood, if you recall, they started the Russia propaganda on Sanders in 2016 primary. Yes, they did. They hit him on that too. They would probably appoint a SC special counsel if he won the election. No, I don't believe that. I don't believe that. If Sanders wins the presidency, Democrats are probably going to win majorities. That's assuming that he runs for the Democratic Party. I don't think that would take place. That would be a Republican doing that. There would be a Republican Congress doing that. Who would be more disappointing in 2020? Bernie or the DNC? My money is on the DNC. My money is on the DNC, also Balthazar. Trudy, let's say he blames Republicans as much as Trump. He is not for impeachment that I've ever heard. Impeachment will rip this country apart. Mark my words. Impeachment would rip this country apart. Bill Clinton got impeached for a blowjob. Democrats took that line down. I don't think Trump supporters would take that line down. I just don't. And by the way, they wouldn't necessarily be wrong. And again, it depends. If they catch him on something that's straightforward, yes, but not the Russia stuff. The Russia stuff is nonsense. The DNC will be the same. The media will be the same. Bernie will win anyway. Two things. Sanders ran in the last campaign not to win, but to push to the left. This time around, I don't think that's true. This time around, I think he goes for blood because I think he sees himself as a front runner. I think his image changes, which means that how he sees himself and how he perceives himself dictates his behavior. Sanders has said that if he sees somebody who can do the job better, then he'll just push that person to do the job better. He'll just support him. If he doesn't believe that there's anybody else that can get the job done, then he himself will step up for it. But this time he's stepping into it, not to push to the left, but to win. And there's a difference in those perspectives. There's a very big difference in those things. I think the Sanders diehards simply have no clue how much credibility he has lost with voters. I don't think the people who are dinging Sanders on this fully understand that they are in a small sandbox and that the overwhelming majority of the public supports it. Like I understand there's a group that has lost a certain degree of, well, he's lost the credibility with. But I would wager, Bob, I will put money on it, that if Sanders is running in the presidential campaign against Donald Trump, that Bob Ramirez will be at the polls pulling the level for that one Bernie Sanders. I will bet money on this. It's, Michael Easterwood, establishment Democrats are just like Republicans. I believe the smear machine would be just as bad as it is now. They all want to protect status quo. That I believe is true. They call Keith Ellison racist. Keith Ellison was a creature of the Democratic Party. Now, he turned around and started supporting Tom Perez after they smeared him. But yeah, they would smear him. Keep in mind, this is the same Democratic Party that sent out hit mailers. What is the woman named? Laura Ingraham? No, it's not Laura Ingraham. Laura Ingraham is a Republican. There was a Democrat that was running. I don't know where she was running, but they were sending out hit mail against her. There was a guy that called in the Sam Cedar that kind of made the same point, that he had to run, or the person that he was supporting was running against the Democratic Party itself, and that the Democratic Party was essentially colluding, in order to take his opponent down. Yeah, they would try to protect status quo. Also, there's a second point. If Sanders wins, it fully discredits the Democratic Party. Meaning, if what he is running as a Democrat, then what is the Democratic Party? If he's the one that's on the left, then who the hell are they? It fundamentally changes what it means to be a Democrat and makes them look, completely discredited in regards to what they represented. Touring with Tom Perez only highlights the difference between the two. Yes. I mean, I know people will say that, Sanders was giving his credibility to Perez, but I don't think that's how it turned out. Tom Perez was so horrible that it just showed this kind of disparity between the two people. I mean, Tom Perez would get on stage and be like, introducing Bernie Sanders. It's like, for the most part, it was making him look bad. Him standing beside Sanders just made him look bad. Alexander, Bernie or guillotine? I would think that Hillary Clinton being the nominee will make voters want to take back Congress more so. She doesn't cave to Republicans, not the other way around. I don't think Clinton is going to run again. Like, I know people were trying to tout this and talking about this, but her own people didn't want her to run. Did you hear some of the stuff that people were talking about that were in her campaign? They couldn't stand the fact that that woman was running. Yeah. All right, this has been going on for an hour, and this video was only supposed to be like 5 minutes. We're talking about 2016. Oh, okay. All right. There's a patron appreciation episode that I need to do. This is not it. But I would arrange for one. It may be after Cal, but fuck, that's gonna hurt because it's gonna be like midnight, after midnight. Let's try to get that done today, though. If you guys have any ideas for topics, let me know. Also, if you guys have questions for Cal, please email me. I'm curious to hear what you guys are saying because I know some of you have disagreements with his perspective of things. You guys have my email list at the bottom. Definitely feel free. I'll pick the ones that are most ideal. We'll go from there. But Laura Steiner is going to be on. She's going to talk about the Democratic Congress, and that's going to be at 3 p.m. Cal. And yeah, chess. I want to get some chess into. Topic: how saying progressive was right. I don't think she was right. I mean, it depends on what you mean right, but on what. Some of it she's right on, some of it I don't think so. Cal's not going to talk about cryptocurrencies. You have Cal Kalinske on. Yeah, he's coming on. Burning a Guillotine. He's going to be on at 6 p.m. Eastern. Ask Lauren about the California Progressive Alliance, new groups she formed with Gail McLaughlin. Worldwide unity of progressives. That I agree with, Trudy. That I do agree with. We need a new world order. One that we need a different world. I've said it before, I say it again, a different world is possible. Part of it is a conception of it, but another part of it is moving in a particular direction. It may seem incremental at first, but moving in a particular direction. What I consider incremental is probably a lot larger than what the Democratic Party would consider incremental. I consider jobs guarantee. I consider expanding Social Security, Medicare for all, free college, free public transportation to try to lower the use of cars, like free solar panels or subsidy for solar panels on housing. California is requiring all housing to have solar panels. That's good. Different world is possible. A better world is possible. Worker co-ops. Federal push for worker co-ops. A better world is possible. Topic, Article 13. Why is that familiar to me? Why is that word familiar? Jamal, please bring up Kenneth McGee getting ballot access by himself in a high-income area in California. You talking about Dolores Steiner? And it's not McGee, it's Kenneth Maya. I know you're talking about the Green Party candidate. It's the Asian guy, right? TYT could run the shame. Bob Romero said, TYT could rerun the same show every day. Who would know the difference? That's fucking hilarious. That's hilarious. Cryptic Warrior. People been preaching New World Order since I've been alive to churchgoers. New World Order say, no, I don't mean it that way. I don't mean it that way. I mean, the United States, Karl Marx had this idea that the revolution will come through a high country like Germany or something to that effect. It wasn't Germany. The socialist or the communist revolution never necessarily took hold in Germany. Maybe it's the breaking of this country, meaning the United States put sanctions on all of these various countries around the world when they're trying to change their government or alter their government. It instigates itself into the various governments to make it difficult for them to maneuver and all this other stuff. If this country changes, is it possible that it allow other countries to change? Meaning, maybe this is the breaking of the dam. Maybe the change that takes place in this country from the standpoint of pushing this country further to the left and getting a governing majority. I keep saying it. It was one point, but the Democratic Party owned the House of Representatives. If we as lefties get to the point where the dialogue, the language that we use in this conversation, we win that battle. Right now, the Democratic Party is speaking in this kind of false progressive language. They use the terms, they try to parrot it, but it comes across as plastic and not necessarily real. I'm saying if part of me feels that that's not going to come through the political apparatus, that's going to be people putting their bodies out on the streets in order to change that, kind of like the Sunrise Movement is doing now in Pelosi's office. But I don't see that happening on a mass scale. There needs to be a fundamental change in the way that we go about our affairs. And I would argue a fundamental change even in Yeah, and the way we go about our affairs. This country needs to change. And I keep saying a better world is possible because I believe a better world is possible. No, it won't necessarily happen overnight, but yes, it can happen in large steps. Worker co-ops is one of those steps that is a sea change in regards to the way we go about our organizing our affairs right now. It's not a perfect, it's not a magic door, but it is a damn sure big difference in regards to how we organize our system of governance. A better world is possible. Burn your bro. We are unstoppable. A better world is possible. Part of it is to believe it. Ask Cal about the Cedar, Jimmy Dore disagreements. Cal seems to be friends with both. Yeah, I don't know how he's, oh God. I kind of don't want to ask that. Oh God, I kind of don't want to ask that. I feel some kind of way about asking that. Why do I feel some kind of way about asking that? I guess it feels like drama stuff. In fact, he did address that. He made this point that he's friends with Dore and he doesn't. Cal and Cedar's relationship is strictly sexual. Oh, stop it. Oh, stop it. Stop it. You have to understand MMT to know all progressive issues can be met. All progressive issues can be met. In general. I mean, look. MMTers hate it when I say this, but MMT kind of makes the point that money is not real. Now, mind you, we're using fiat currency, so that is to some degree true. We've issued authority to banks to essentially just make God's amounts of money. That should stop. We are $20 trillion in debt. We don't have roads, we don't have education, we don't have any of this stuff. This is also nonsense. We're spending all of this money on military around the world. So you can make an argument that MMT is currently being used now. But just because it's being used, it's not necessarily being used in our behest. Just saying. Well, gosh, I guess French is too stupid, MMT, and with all the eat cake. No, MMT, you understand, you're talking BS. Oh, God. MM2 is a tool. The point is, you don't know how to use it properly, specifically who distributes it. Look, some of it is true, fair enough. I've heard Stephanie Kelton give her arguments. I've heard Richard Wolff give his arguments on MMT. I've even sat in lectures or debates of MMT. I understand it. I get what it is. Hey, use money, look at it, see it's money. Yeah, no, but at that point it's just digits in a keyboard. I mean, they're creating the money, but it's just digits. I feel you. I hope Sam Sheepherder bed is king size. He needs to fit Michael Brooks' progressive voice and Cal in there. Oh! Sam Cedar doesn't share his bed with anybody other than Michael Brooks, mister. MMT is a scam, just like Soviets. It's money, it's real. Money is not real. It's just a tool. It's a mental conception. If you understand MMT, you know that the deficit is meaningless. The deficit is not meaningless. I understand what MMT says on this point, but look, at a certain point, you run afoul of the perspective of other countries. Money is not real. That said, it is a mental conception, and as a mental conception, you have certain rule sets that the other countries and this country is using. World finance. World finance takes a certain perspective of deficits. I'm just saying. Patrick Valencia, you are my favorite YouTube political analyst. Oh, thank you, Patrick. I appreciate it. Money is imbued with value, yes, purely by perspective. If you print money, how difficult is it to pay back a loan in your own currency? Oh, look, don't get me wrong. The United States can't default on its debt. The dollar is essentially the reserve currency. As long as our debt is in dollars, we can pay back our dollars. Alan Greenspan has a clip where I think Paul Ryan is asking him about whether we're default on the debt, and Alan Greenspan is kind of making a point to him: we can never default on our debt. As long as we can print dollars, we can never default on our debt. Paul Ryan hated that. He hated that answer, but the answer is true. You're my favorite 2400 chess player, sandbagging 1800. I don't think I've ever hit 2400. The highest I've gotten was 2300, and that was years ago when I was playing all the time. As you've seen me, I'm at my weakest ever in chess. Like literally, I'm back to where I was when I was a child. But I'm trying to claw my rating back. So, all right, I'm going to end this here because we're just fucking around at this point. And Laura Steiner is going to be here in 2 hours. Yeah, 2 hours. So, I will see you guys then. Guys, I want to thank everyone who's assisting and contributing to the show. You guys keep the show ticking along. I've said that more than one occasion because it's absolutely true. I absolutely appreciate your help with the show. I am going to try to do a patron appreciation episode after the Cal interview. I am going to be dragging ass, so forgive me in advance, but I'm still going to try to do it. You should get Twitch. I've heard about Twitch. I thought that was a video game platform. I thought that was a video game thing. Alright. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. I gotta be honest, guys. I really want to use this as a patron appreciation episode. The reason why I kind of want to do that with this is because I'm doing this video because one of my patrons... Fuck, is he a patron? If he's not a patron, that doesn't work. If he's not a patron, it doesn't work. I think he's a patron. Alright, we'll see. If he's a patron... Wicked Guru. I think Wicked Guru is a patron. I need to check. If Wicked Guru is a patron, I may use this as a patron appreciation episode. Because I've had like 100 people here. And I've seen a shitload of my patrons. $16,000 subscribers. Congratulations. Thank you, Patrick. Yeah, I saw it earlier today where it seemed to trip over. Awesome. Thanks, Burman. Alright. I will leave this. You all have a good one. And I will see you guys in a couple of hours. Thanks all. Thanks everybody for showing up. I'm a patron, just not under this account. No, you're fine. I'm wondering. I've had so many people here. I kind of want to call this a patron appreciation episode. Not to mention when Trudy shows up, it's like, what? Trudy's here? Trudy's one of my favorite people. She's been with me for a while. In fact, a lot of you guys have been with me for a while. I appreciate all of you. Wicked Guru. I think he's a patron. I need to make sure. Either way, we'll see. I still probably have an episode after Cal. That's the missus. All right, guys. You all have a good one.